We have Tracey-Ann and Palmer from the University of Technology in Sydney, Australia. Thank you for joining us from way far away.
Indeed. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. What I'd like to do is first of all say how wonderful it is that there's an organisation like this that can bring together people who are fascinated with science and with music. My work, I work for the, yes, as you said, the University of Technology in Sydney. And normally the research that I do is around encouraging children in their final years of school to choose to study science. I wasn't able to do that when COVID hit because I couldn't get into schools, but being fascinated with engagement, I started looking at other things to do. And I actually make music outside of my role in academia, and thought, wow, what a wonderful opportunity to combine two loves, my love of science, also my love of teaching, along with music, and do something about putting those together. And I was very lucky because I got some funding to do it. And I used that funding to make this, which is a set of 8 songs that are linked to the Australian curriculum. And they're designed to engage tweens, upper primary, we call it primary, you call it elementary, upper primary, lower secondary students with science. The reason I've chosen to create these songs to engage rather than teach content, of course, there's that all the wonderful research that's been done around how amazing music is for helping students learn science. And a lot of that is around content. I'm more interested in keeping students engaged at that initial stage when they're introduced to new science concepts. And down here in Australia, and I know it's used elsewhere in the world, we have a teaching a system which is called 5 E's. It's by a researcher called Biobe. And the 5 E's takes students through developing an interest in a subject to exploring it. So the first E is engage, and then they explore it. Then the teacher explains what's it about, and then they elaborate on the concept, and finally they evaluate. So it's a learning sequence. And I thought I'd really like to make some songs that just fit into the first stage of that. And there aren't very many available because a lot of them really do focus on content, which is fantastic later on in that sequence. But at the very beginning of the sequence, the idea is that you generate questions. So you try not to give anything away, any of the answers. It's just about getting the students interested. So that's why I came up with focusing on engagement. The other thing which was a bit different about the research and the songs that I put together is that I decided to focus on tweens. So these are students who are 10, 11, 12, even into the early teens. And I chose to focus on them because my other research I do is into adolescent decision-making, and I teach educational psychology. And I knew from my research that at this particular phase in development, it's when the brain, I decided not to go through, my presentation is available on YouTube. You can look at it there. I'll come to that at the end. But what I found really interesting is that, of course, when students go through this time, parts of their brain get pruned away. And that's so important because it makes our brains very efficient, but it's also the time where things like science can get pruned away and people say, I'm not sciencey. And I wanted to make sure that whatever I did was going to try and keep students engaged with science at this very important time when this neural pruning is happening. So let me tell you a little bit about the songs, but I want to leave most of the time for questions. We have, I'm sure, a syllabus that's very similar to what I know it is very similar to what is available elsewhere. So if you happen to teach in a school and you want to use the songs, when I investigated what teens liked, I found out that they, in days of old, they used to love listening to, you know, the folky sort of songs, the traditional songs, perhaps the sort of songs they were listening to when they were little. Once they hit the teen years, they don't like that anymore. They don't like to be treated as children. They like to be treated as teenagers, and they like pop songs. And there's been an increasing number of amount of research in past years looking at that, most of it from a marketing point of view. So I decided that if I was going to make this music, that it would be in a pop style. Now, the music that I make normally actually leans a little bit more towards the folky. So I had to learn how to do it. I have a wonderful record producer who has produced the other albums that I've created. My husband and I have just completed our 9th album. And he helped me. I designed the music on GarageBand, and he helped me finesse it. So I'd like to invite you to go to my YouTube site, and I've got a YouTube channel like we all do, and put in my name. I will actually put in the chat my website as well. Oh, thank you. Someone's put in Primary Connections. Yes, that's what we do it with. In my website, I actually list out all of the work that I'm doing and research and where I'm going with it. At the moment, these songs are in 2 schools in Sydney here, and specialist science teachers are testing them for me. It's been a little tricky because we're back in lockdown. We went down in lockdown about a couple of months ago now. So it's been a little bit tricky. But so far, the response is really good. They sit there, they listen. I was actually lucky enough to be in the classroom to watch some year 6 boys listen to the songs, one of the songs for the first time. I've never had really such a buzz with my music as I was standing there at the back and watching the heads go. And the teacher who was out the front looking from the other way, she was saying they were there mouthing the words. And I've got videos for the music. I hadn't intended to do videos, but then the feedback I got from some initial research I did, some surveys I did, were that the teachers really needed videos to go with them. So I have a video for each of the songs that I've created. And I'm excited because, as you can see, I'm excited. I'm also a little bit asleep, so it's 4 o'clock in the morning over here. It's an exciting thing for me to bring all of these different aspects of my life together, and to have the opportunity to see the impact it makes in the classroom, to actually watch the students do it. So I'm very excited that hopefully next year I'll get back into the classroom to be able to see how the students respond to it and hear their voice, not just the teachers, but what the students themselves want to tell me about the music and how I can improve it. So that's been a real whirlwind, because I wanted to try and really focus on taking questions and making connections. So do you have any questions you'd like to ask me about my project? Hi, Dennis.
Hi, Tracy. Thanks so much for your presentation.
My whirlwind presentation.
Yeah. Yeah, I would be kind of interested in some of the kind of assessments you've done in terms of the educational value in the classes you've taught, and what kind of results you've seen.
I'm right at the initial stage of putting this together. The songs were released at the beginning of this year in February, and it seemed to coincide with a difficult time for us here with respect to COVID. The first lot of research I did was a survey where I released the songs and asked teachers to listen to the songs and let me know whether they felt the songs were valuable, the sort of attributes that they would consider important in whether or not they use these songs in their classroom. So things like, did they want to have video? Was it important that it was research validated? I went to some length to make sure that all the science was there, but a little cryptic. Once again, trying to fit in with this 5 E's model of learning, just to encourage questions. So that was the first bit of research I did. And that was, I just called it a scoping survey, a bit of a feel for what was out there and what was needed. I did do a review of the songs that were available. And at that stage, I did a review of whatever songs were available for the primary kids, elementary children, right up through high school. That's actually where I met Johnny Berliner, and we've had a couple of chats about his amazing work that he's done. So I reviewed what was there, and that's when I found that there was this gap for tweens. There were lots of really, really fun songs for little children, and then there were quite a lot of songs available for the senior years. But then there was this hole. And when I spoke to teachers that I knew, they said, you know, the children find them childish, and they didn't like that, particularly when they got to the upper elementary stage. So then I thought I will pilot my songs in 2 classrooms rather than a full launch. That turned out being a very good idea, given we went back into lockdown. And the idea was that the teacher will take the song, play it for their class at the beginning of a learning sequence around a particular science topic. As I said, I've got 8 songs on 8 different topics, which cover actually most of the syllabus. And then they will watch how the students respond to it. And then they decide how they use that song going forward. Now, I have lots of ideas, and it's very difficult when I'm talking to these teachers not to say, oh, well, you know, if it were me, I'd get them to, I'd get them to make their own music video. I'd get them to make a dance, all sorts of things like that. So I try not to do that, because what I want to do is I want to get their ideas, and I will interview my teachers afterwards, put all of that together, and then build resources around what the teachers tell me they think would work in the classroom. Now, I am a secondary trained science teacher. I'm actually also a scientist. I was a biochemist before I got into teaching. And now in an academic, I find myself actually teaching primary science and doing as we do in academia, we tend to go around. So, but my teaching these particular, the tweens, it is not something I do face-to-face all the time. So I want to get that information from them. So my plan is next year, and I have all my ethics approved for all of this, is that I will get, I will ask teachers to do this for me. I'll probably, if I can get 6, hopefully 8 teachers to play the songs and use it during the first couple of terms next year, and see what they come up with. And then I can load it up and everyone can use it. And I've tried to be very careful about making sure that everything is completely freely available. We have lovely, wonderful materials here. There's a lot of things we have that are just available for students in our public system. There's lots of wonderful things that are produced by private schools. I just want everyone to be able to do this, which is why if you type my name into Google, I come up all over the place, and people can find it.
Tracey's video is on the Voices website to watch her presentation as a video poster. Certainly, everyone has been talking about how music is valuable, whether it's in class or whether it's online, as we've experienced during COVID. So it's really a fascinating thing. We'll be back at 3:10